Welcome to the ninth episode of the Arthashastra series.
Great to be back.
Today we're diving deep into part 9X of this ancient text, which lays out in a really fascinating detail the strategies and structures for covert operations.
Yes, it's quite the section.
You provided us with excerpts covering, well, everything from setting up a secret service and internal security measures to tactics for dealing with oligarchies, enemy kings.
And even some surprising mentions of what looks like magic or illusions.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack these ancient insights into espionage and statecraft and, see what really stands out.
Well, this part of the Arthashastra gives us a remarkable glimpse behind the curtain of governance, doesn't it?
It really does.
It really underscores that ruling effectively wasn't just about, open administration or military strength. A huge part involved the strategic use of intelligence and, well, clandestine activities to keep and expand power.
Absolutely. And what's immediately striking, I think, is the high priority given to actually establishing a secret service.
Right at the outset.
It's not presented as some kind of optional extra, but as fundamental for the king, right alongside that crucial job of checking how trustworthy his own advisors are.
The text gives context with those four tests: dharma, artha, kama, and fear. But you're right, the real focus here is building that network of secret agents from scratch.
That early emphasis, it really speaks volumes about the mindset, doesn't it? Before even fully trusting the inner circle, the ruler needed independent information sources.
Eyes and ears, essentially, spread throughout the kingdom and beyond.
Yeah. And the text introduces the term Gouda, meaning concealed, for all these agents, men and women. Then it immediately splits them into two main types.
That's right. You have the Samsa, those are the established agents,
Yeah.
based at specific locations.
Fixed posts, kind of.
And then the roving agents who moved around. And what's interesting, as you pointed out, is that both these core groups were permanent state employees, regular salaries.
Which suggests a highly organized, institutionalized approach. This wasn't just ad hoc spying.
Not at all. Treating espionage as a formal government branch really highlights how important they thought it was. And it's also worth noting the chancellor had their own spy network, too.
Oh, right. Focused more on revenue and rural security.
Exactly. So different aspects of government needed their own specialized intelligence focus. A division of labor, almost.
Okay, so let's dig into these established agents, the Samstha. The text really spotlights the Kapatika, the intelligence officer.
Yes, a key role. These were trained, loyal students working under various covers. Monks, householders, merchants.
It's like embedding spies into the everyday fabric of society.
Precisely. And besides them, other established agents disguise themselves as ascetics, both Brahminical and non-Brahminical types.
Why those covers specifically, do you think? Monks, merchants, ascetics.
Well, it seemed deliberate. All those roles allow movement and interaction within communities without necessarily raising eyebrows, right?
It makes sense.
Mhm.
A monk travels, a householder is local, a merchant meets lots of people.
Exactly. And ascetics often held this respected, maybe slightly detached position. They could observe without drawing too much attention. It shows a pretty sophisticated grasp of the social landscape.
Okay, now shifting to the roving agents. The picture gets even more complex here. The Satri, the secret agent proper, seems like the most versatile.
Definitely. Trained in a whole range of skills, interpreting signs, palmistry, even magic and omens, plus this intriguing art of men and society.
That phrase always catches my eye, and they were often recruited from orphans. Why?
Well, recruiting orphans could serve a couple of purposes. Maybe ensuring deep loyalty to the state, if they lacked other family ties.
Ah, right, no conflicting loyalties.
And potentially it allowed for, a clean slate for training and indoctrination into espionage. And that broad training for the Satris suggests they needed to be highly adaptable, understanding people, social dynamics, vulnerabilities, maybe even manipulation.
That art of men and society probably covered all that.
Very likely.
Then we get the more specialized roving types. The Tikshna, the assassin, recruited for sheer bravery, willing to risk their lives for money. The text mentions fighting wild animals.
That does. Very vivid.
And the Rasada, the poisoner, described as cruel, lazy, no affection for relatives. Quite the profile.
Stark descriptions, aren't they? Highlighting a ruthless pragmatism. Certain traits were assets for certain jobs.
And maybe the most surprising, the wandering nuns, Parivrahika and Mundavrishala. Poor but fearless widows treated with honor to get access to high officials' houses. That's clever.
Yeah.
Exploiting social norms.
Extremely clever. Because they might be underestimated, seen as harmless religious figures. They could move freely, access private spaces, overhear conversations others couldn't.
You really see the strategic thinking there. And we can't forget the double agents.
Yeah. Working for the enemy, but secretly for the conqueror, with their families held hostage as leverage.
Brutal. What does that reliance on, well, such drastic measures tell us about the political climate back then?
It underscores the incredibly high stakes, doesn't it? And the level of distrust. Loyalty needed more than just oaths. It needed a powerful deterrent against betrayal. It's pragmatic, if ethically challenging for us.
Definitely. And the sheer scope of occupational covers listed is just astounding. 29 categories, 50 subtypes.
It's almost a complete catalog of society. Ordinary citizens, holy men, merchants, doctors, entertainers, even thieves.
Brothel keepers, actors, caterers, astrologers, the list goes on, and women specifically mentioned as nuns, rich widows, actresses, musicians, experts in love affairs.
It implies almost no part of society was off limits for infiltration.
Some covers seem really ambitious, though, like chief in the aggressor's army or wife of a high official of the enemy. Were those real or more like a theoretical possibilities?
Good question. They might seem improbable, yeah. Maybe high-risk, high-reward scenarios, or perhaps even psychological warfare, just planting the idea could create paranoia. The text likely wanted to show the sheer breadth of possibilities. Think creatively.
What's also striking is the legal protection given to these agents. Their contracts were valid even if based on fraud. That seems unusual.
Very unusual. It really underscores the state's absolute commitment to protecting its intelligence operations. It's like saying, what you do for us might be illegal normally, but in this context, it's sanctioned and protected. It highlights their critical, unique role.
So the text then outlines why these agents were needed within the kingdom, testing ministers' loyalty,
Surveillance of officials and the general population.
eliminating treacherous officials, stopping enemy subversion, catching criminals.
Identifying any potentially disruptive elements. It's a comprehensive system for internal stability, like a constant internal audit of power, as you said.
Exactly. Preventing threats from within, whether from the government itself or the populace.
Paramount importance.
And of course, this extended beyond the borders. Foreign policy, warfare. The text mentions subverting oligarchies and confederacies by sowing dissension. That comes up a lot.
It's a core tactic. Weakening potential rivals from the inside. Divide and conquer. Using very specific, detailed methods laid out in the text, exploiting internal rivalries.
We see these complex methods using multiple agent types, playing on human weaknesses, ambition, lust.
Right. Using false rumors, sometimes spread by condemned men with forged letters. Cunning and ruthless.
And then there's that brief mention of magic and the occult in Book 14. Translation issues noted, but still suggests maybe psychological tactics.
It's certainly thought-provoking. The exact nature is murky, but it hints at using illusions, maybe substances, for psychological impact, or maybe even practical effects we don't fully grasp, exploiting superstition, perhaps.
And it wasn't just their own agents. They used allies, even the enemy's supposed friends, to create false security, layers upon layers of deception.
Absolutely. And the text stresses verifying intelligence, corroborate everything with 3 different spies.
Crucial. And unreliable agents.
Eliminated. Stark. But it shows the need for absolute dependability. The whole system relies on good intel.
The text also mentions honoring established agents, partly to gauge the loyalty of other officials. Appease the genuinely angry, quietly remove the others.
A subtle way to manage the ranks.
And the recruitment process itself is fascinating, giving resources to initial recruits, monks, traders, etc., and having them recruit from people they help creates a self-replicating network.
It's like a tiered system, isn't it? Initial trust in nodes expand the network outwards, provides layers of deniability, reaches deeper into society, makes the whole thing more resilient.
And that elaborate method for using ascetics as spies, building their reputation with staged predictions, finding potential government recruits on the side, it's incredibly ingenious.
It really is. Leveraging the social and spiritual authority of the ascetic figure, gaining access and information in communities wary of overt government presence, using the social dynamics of the time to strategic advantage.
Then there's intelligence transmission, codes, separating gatherers from transmitters for security.
Operational security was key.
And clever methods for tough situations, songs, signs, hidden messages, faking illness, staging escapes. Resourceful.
They had to be.
And naturally, agents abroad, in enemy courts, ally courts, neutral ones. targeting kings and high officials, different spies for different locations, cities, countryside, frontiers, forests,
A comprehensive foreign intelligence setup.
plus counter-espionage. Using their own spies in similar disguises, even loyal officials pretending to be disloyal as bait. It's this incredibly detailed system, offensive and defensive in the covert world.
The meticulous attention to OPSEC coding counter-intel, it shows a deep understanding of the risks. It's almost an unsettlingly complete blueprint for an effective Secret Service.
And we shouldn't forget the Chancellor's agents' broader disguises focus on rural revenue and security, monitoring village officials, department heads, investigating suspicious activity.
Right, so it's this multi-layered, pervasive intelligence apparatus, seen as absolutely essential for stability, prosperity, and, well, expansion.
Phew. Okay, that's a lot just on creating the Secret Service. Now, let's talk about how these agents were used for internal security. The text mentions testing the integrity of ministers.
Yes, using those 4 provocations we touched on earlier. Dharma, religion duty; artha, material gain; kama, pleasure lust; and fear.
Can you give some examples of how these tests worked in practice?
Sure. For the Dharma test, an agent might suggest deposing the current Purohita, chief priest, and appointing someone else, framing it as beneficial to the kingdom, to see if the minister agrees to something potentially impious for political gain.
Okay. And for Artha, material gain.
An agent, perhaps disguised as a disgraced commander, might approach a minister suggesting they could overthrow the king for mutual profit. See if greed wins out.
And kama, pleasure, that one seems fraught with danger.
It does. The text suggests using a wandering nun agent, Parvrahika, to subtly approach the queen, claiming a minister is infatuated with her, to gauge the minister's reaction or intentions indirectly. Kautilya is cautious here, though. He explicitly warns against directly tempting the king or queen themselves, or corrupting someone who isn't already corrupt. The idea is more to use outsiders as reference points, or agents to test reactions, all while maintaining surveillance.
Smart. Keep the core leadership untainted by the test itself. What about the fear test?
An agent might leak information suggesting the king is angry with the minister and plans action, perhaps.
So these tests were designed to reveal hidden disloyalty or weakness. What about ongoing surveillance of high officials beyond these initial tests?
Constant vigilance was key. Diligent, multilingual roving spies, Satri, were tasked with monitoring the 18 ranks of high officials.
Multilingual. That suggests a diverse court or kingdom.
Or dealings with diverse regions, yes. Assassins, Tikshna, might be placed as attendants to report on outdoor activities, movements, meetings.
And indoors.
Poisoners, Rasada, interestingly, were used for indoor spying. They'd use disguises, servants, cooks, entertainers, musicians, reporting what they saw and heard via those wandering nuns, Parvrika.
Using poisoners for surveillance seems extreme, but maybe their access to kitchens and private quarters was the point?
Perhaps. Or their perceived ruthlessness meant they wouldn't hesitate to report compromising information. It's a system built on exploiting specific skills and access points.
And this surveillance extended to the general population too, not just officials.
Oh, yes. Monitoring people in cities and the countryside to identify anyone dissatisfied or potentially subversive.
How would they do that? You can't watch everyone.
Agents would stage arguments in public gatherings to gauge public opinion or see who takes sides against the king. Spies, disguised as ascetics, would watch those receiving royal favors or grants, looking for signs of discontent despite the king's generosity.
And the chancellor's spies were involved here too.
Yes, those householders, merchants, ascetics, even old reformed thieves, monitored village life, trade routes, markets, watched for suspicious movements, strangers, unusual wealth.
Old thieves, using their knowledge of the underworld.
Exactly. They'd know how criminals operate, who looks suspicious.
Yes.
Secret agents also patrolled roads, public places, arrested suspicious people, searched lodging houses, taverns, gambling dens, kept an eye on anyone spending lavishly without a known income source.
A very tight net.
Yeah.
Now, what about dealing with confirmed treacherous high officials, especially powerful ones?
Because they were powerful or perhaps united, the text advocates secret methods, intrigue, rather than open confrontation.
Makes sense. Less disruption. What kind of methods?
Several approaches. One involved using relatives against the official, tempting a brother to fratricide with promises of favor, stirring up inheritance disputes, misleading the minister's son about possibly being of royal blood to make him ambitious.
Wow, really playing on family dynamics.
And even using a mendicant woman agent to subtly poison the official, perhaps introduced by a relative. Another category was entrapment,
How so?
sending the official on a dangerous expedition with secret assassins embedded in their troops, staging the discovery of weapons near the official during a royal meeting, implying an assassination attempt.
Framing them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Fabricating an affair with a fake queen, perhaps an agent in disguise, then having them caught. Offering poisoned food or drink where the traitor has to taste it first. Manipulating witchcraft rituals to make it seem the official is cursed or targeted by harmful magic.
Using superstition again.
Yes. Or poisoning via a fake doctor or bribed food preparers. Then there's playing officials against each other.
How did that work?
Exploiting existing adulterous relationships to cause conflict. Engineering disputes over territory or government projects. Having mendicant women spread false accusations of infidelity. Using border disputes or existing quarrels, exacerbating them, maybe poisoning one during a supposed reconciliation visit arranged by an agent.
It's a playbook of psychological manipulation and betrayal.
Designed to neutralize internal threats discreetly and effectively.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly to subversion and intrigue more broadly. Protecting the kingdom from enemy attempts at subversion, but also using it against enemies.
Right. The text first identifies the types most easily subverted. The angry, the greedy, the frightened, and the haughty. Basically exploiting strong negative emotions or desires.
Classic human weaknesses.
Exactly. Spies disguised as soothsayers or astrologers would monitor people exhibiting these traits, potential targets for enemy agents. Loyal people showing these traits would be rewarded to secure their allegiance. For the truly discontented, the four methods were used: conciliation, gifts, sowing dissension among them, and finally, force or punishment.
And turning this outwards against the enemy.
Same principle. Identify the angry, greedy, frightened, haughty in the enemy's territory. Try conciliation and gifts first on those deemed easily swayed. For others, use dissension or force, often by highlighting the enemy king's flaws or perceived injustices.
It mentions specific ways to instigate these types.
Yes, quite vividly. Agents disguised as ascetics would approach targets with tailored arguments. For the angry, compare the king to a mad elephant trampling everything. For the greedy, like cows milked dry by a hunter. For the frightened, a coiled snake ready to strike. For the haughty, compare the king to a chandala, outcast, implying impurity or lowliness.
Very specific, evocative imagery.
And if they agreed to switch sides, they'd be rewarded. Money, provisions, honors for their families. There are other comparisons too. The diligent but unrewarded official is like a donkey. Army officers like a stick used to knock down fruit, then discarded. The alarmed like a stray goat. The insulted like someone struck by lightning.
It really emphasizes understanding the target's specific grievance or personality.
Absolutely. Tailoring the approach was key. Contracts were apparently made, setting out agreed terms for defection.
Now, what about trapping common criminals, thieves, bandits?
Various methods using disguised agents. For thieves in settled areas. Agents gaining their confidence with fake magic tricks or shared spoils from staged burglaries, marking stolen goods for later identification, using drugged food or drink during shared celebrations.
Setting them up.
Essentially, yes. Captured criminals were sometimes paraded publicly as a warning. For forest bandits, using old thieves or cowherds as bait, luring them into ambushes or attacks on caravans secretly carrying poisoned goods or soldiers. Or agents posing as vintners during festivals, offering drugged or poisoned drinks.
Ruthless efficiency again, and dealing with what the text calls antisocial elements, beyond standard criminals.
This seems to target corruption and specific harmful practices. The Chancellor's agents reported on potentially corrupt village officials and department heads.
How are they tested?
Agents might try to bribe judges or magistrates to test their honesty, suggesting extortion schemes to village heads to see if they bite.
Yeah.
Tempting witnesses with money to commit perjury.
Actively trying to root out corruption.
Yes. Also targeting practitioners of witchcraft used for harmful purposes. Agents pretending to seek love potions or curses to identify them. Catching poisoners or narcotics dealers by offering money for their wares. Identifying counterfeiters by observing their tools and behavior or infiltrating their operations. Checking assayers or goldsmiths for adulterating precious metals.
A real focus on maintaining social order and economic integrity, and marauding jungle tribes or robber bands.
Similar tactics to forest bandits. Clandestine agents gaining their trust, then luring them into ambushes or situations where they attack poisoned resources. Using fake ascetics or vintners with poisoned drinks during festivals. The aim was often to disperse them, destroy them in smaller groups.
Okay, let's move on to the bigger picture. Strategies against oligarchies and enemy kings. The text really emphasizes subversion here.
It calls the results miraculous. The same principles apply as with internal subversion win over the easily swayed with conciliation and gifts. Use dissension, force, or highlighting the king's defects for the others.
It gives specific examples, again, for identifying targets in enemy territory based on those same four types. Angry, greedy, frightened, haughty.
Yes, very specific scenarios. Someone unjustly punished or deprived of inheritance is angry. Someone ruined, heavily taxed, or ambitious is greedy. Someone implicated in a crime, losing a lawsuit, or dreading punishment is frightened. Someone arrogant about their learning, power, or wealth, or wanting honors they don't deserve is haughty.
A psychological profile for potential defectors.
Exactly. And agents, often disguised as ascetics, would approach them with tailored arguments and promises, as we discussed before.
How do they target oligarchies specifically, those groups of rulers?
Sowing dissension was paramount. The text mentions stealthy or underhand use of force, like killing one chief and framing another. Often exploiting lust or ambition seems key. Encouraging the ambition of a chief's son against his father. Using agents, brothel keepers, performers posing as holy men, rich widows, dancers to create infatuations that lead to conflict or scandal. Inciting quarrels over status, women, property, gambling debts. Using spies to spread false accusations.
Basically, find the cracks and wedge them wider.
Precisely. Break the unity that gives the oligarchy its strength.
And within a confederacy or alliance of states, similar tactics.
Yes, but often focused on making one member look like a traitor working with the conqueror, to break the alliance from within.
How would they achieve that?
Spreading rumors that one leader has been bribed, secretly getting hold of unique products from one member's territory and leaking them to suggest secret dealings. Using released convicts or a staged desertion by one of the conqueror's ministers to plant false information.
Deception upon deception.
Sending fake treaties, sabotaging camps or supplies, and blaming it on internal conflict within the Confederacy, assassinating key individuals and making it look like an inside job, all designed to breed suspicion and break the alliance apart.
Now, what if you're the weak king facing a powerful aggressor? The text offers secret methods here, too.
Yes, as a way to avoid conquest, especially if caught unprepared.
Yeah.
One drastic measure is assassinating the aggressor king.
How? The text details methods.
It outlines a complex plan involving a merchant agent setting up shop in the enemy capital, gaining trust. Their assistant, another agent, gets close to the queen's attendants. An ascetic agent then provides a supposed love potion laced with poison, given first to the maid, then potentially to the queen to administer to the king.
An incredibly intricate and high-risk plot.
Extremely. Other methods focus on subversion within the aggressor's camp, instigating the aggressor's son to revolt, tempting other potential pretenders or disgraced princes with money to sabotage the war effort.
Turning the aggressor's own family or rivals against them?
Exactly. Subverting high officials, Mahamantras, using fake soothsayers predicting doom, mendicant women agents spreading rumors or discord, even using officials' wives as agents, planting false evidence against cooks or waiters to sow suspicion about poisoning attempts, spreading rumors that key officials are secretly contacting the weak king's side,
Creating chaos and paranoia.
undermining trust at every level. Specific plans targeted the viceroy and chancellor, spreading rumors of the king's difficulties to make them seem disloyal, inciting violence and robbery attributed to them, then rousing the people against them. Agents could then start fires or cause chaos, blame the officials, and try to install a pretender.
A full-blown coup attempt orchestrated from outside.
Essentially, army chiefs were targeted too, using brothel keepers or beautiful women agents to create infatuations and quarrels, then using assassins, or poisoning via fake ascetics offering love potions. Bribery with land or wealth was also an option.
What about the commanders of defense corps?
Agents gaining their favor, then spreading rumors the king is angry with them. Using fake curfew passes to lure some out at night and have them killed, then advising the remaining commanders that the king's untrustworthy and they should abandon him or defect.
Playing on fear and self-preservation.
Yes. Similar methods, false rumors, fear-mongering were suggested for others who might be disgruntled, those whose requests were rejected, those who felt undercompensated, even those who hadn't asked for anything but might feel overlooked.
So, subversion everywhere. But what about direct counterattacks using secret means?
Yes, the text advises using secret methods appropriate to the location. Provoking another power to attack the aggressor by secretly sending them more materials and intelligence via agents in disguise.
Getting someone else to do the fighting. Clever.
or direct attacks using poison. Agents posing as wine sellers or infiltrating the army to poison troops, adding poison to water sources, fodder, etc. Agents as food or drink sellers, offering cheap poison goods near the camp. Traders selling poisoned oils or liquids. Even women and children using their own vessels to deliver poison. Poisoning the enemy's elephants and horses via fodder or bribed attendants.
That's grimly comprehensive.
It is. And creating chaos in the aggressor's camp. Agents in disguise releasing draft animals, starting fires, killing commanders during the confusion, attacking from the rear, ambushing supply lines, creating diversions back in the aggressor's capital to force them to split their forces.
A strategy of total disruption.
And finally, assassination of the aggressor king himself during moments of vulnerability, tumults, escapes, battles, perhaps while traveling through specific terrains, breaching dams to cause drowning, using fire or smoke in besieged forts, poisoning food or water in familiar places, using poisoned animals in water sources, concealed weapons during escapes, even mechanical contraptions hidden in temples used during worship.
An astonishingly varied and ruthless list of assassination methods. Okay, one more major area related to this. The conqueror besieging an enemy's fort. Secret methods were vital here too.
Absolutely. Weakening enemy morale was key. Demonstrating association with gods using hidden agents speaking from idols, chemical tricks to make things glow or seem miraculous, illusions.
The psychological warfare again, making the defenders feel the gods are against them.
Exactly. And enticing the besieged king out of the fort using tricks. Agents disguised as long-lived ascetics claiming knowledge of the future, fake treasure diviners, glowing holy men, fake water deities appearing in wells, agents pretending magical powers.
Preying on belief and superstition.
Yes. Using popular temples near the fort for staged miracles. Border magic rituals. Agents disguised as demons to terrorize the populace, then luring the king out for propitiatory rites where he could be ambushed.
Tailoring the approach to the king's weaknesses too.
Right. If he loved horses or elephants, staging something involving them. If he loved hunting, luring him out that way. If avaricious, planting fake treasure. If susceptible to women, using female agents. Ambushing him in places he frequently visited during vulnerable moments.
And getting forces inside the fort.
Through infiltration. Staging fake decoy attacks where the conqueror's troops rescue merchants, who are actually agents, allowed into the fort. Disguised armed agents mixing with pilgrims or processions to create a tumult inside. Even using peace treaties as a guise to infiltrate soldiers. The text also mentions using covert methods when choosing between two stronger potential allies, or escaping a bad treaty.
Which brings us finally to that mention of magic, illusions, and the occult in Book 14. This seems like a separate category almost.
It does read a bit like a compilation of secret recipes and practices. It details chemical preparations for causing death, blindness, unconsciousness, diseases, madness, poisoning water supplies, even disfigurement.
Sounds like early chemical warfare or biological agents.
In a way. But also chemicals for more benign or perhaps tactical uses. Surviving without food for days, changing one's color, making objects burn or glow, walking on fire, fire-breathing tricks, overcoming fatigue, even curing leprosy. Though identifying the ingredients now is often impossible.
Some sound like plausible tricks, like burning reeds tied to birds or breathing fire.
Yes, some might have been achievable illusions or chemical reactions. The text also lists magical chemicals meant to empower the attacker. Giving night vision, causing invisibility, inducing unconsciousness in guards, opening locks, breaking chains or defense machines, protecting against fire, overcoming fatigue, providing inexhaustible food.
Invisibility, that sounds less plausible.
Highly improbable by our understanding, yes. It might represent wishful thinking, exaggeration, or perhaps refer to techniques of stealth and camouflage described metaphorically. Then there are spells mentioned for harming the victim, causing diseases, blindness, impotence, destroying their livelihood, invoking disasters, creating magical animals, starting uncontrollable fires.
So, curses and harmful magic.
Alongside protective magic for the royal palace, against fire, snakes, poisons. Poisons and poisoning are discussed extensively as tools against traitors and enemies, along with methods for detecting poison and identifying poisoners.
There's a contradiction here, isn't there? The king is advised to use magic and poison, but common people using them were punished.
A clear double standard. These potent, dangerous tools were reserved for the state, specifically for use against those seen as disrupting Dharma and the social order, the four Varnas. Protecting the realm justified methods forbidden to individuals.
The text mentions using militia agents, foreigners, or outsiders.
Yes, disguised perhaps as disabled individuals, adopting enemy customs to poison the enemy king's clothing or belongings. Also, using weapons concealed in sports equipment for assassination, secret agents or arsonists setting fires at night.
And using deceptive occult practices to frighten enemies or control revolts.
Right. Employing mantras, drugs, illusions, whatever, work to protect one's own people and destroy enemies. But critically, the king was advised to protect his own troops with antidotes before deploying poisons against the enemy. A measure of caution, even amidst the ruthlessness.
Now, with such a vast amount of information flowing in, how did they ensure its reliability and maintain the security of their operations? Information security must have been crucial.
Absolutely. They utilized a system of triangulation, verifying crucial information through 3 independent sources before considering it accurate.
Triangulation, okay.
Security was paramount. Often the agents transmitting information wouldn't know the identities of those who initially gathered it. They employed coded language, symbolic acts, and even staged emergencies as methods for extraction.
And if an agent messed up or was compromised,
And if an agent was deemed unreliable or compromised, they were swiftly eliminated to protect the network. No messing around.
harsh, but perhaps necessary in that context. And they also had to contend with the complexities of double agents and gathering intelligence from foreign powers. That must have been a headache.
A huge challenge. They recognized that loyalty could be bought or coerced. They would sometimes take family members of potential double agents as hostages to ensure their cooperation.
Insurance, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They also employed agents who would mimic the disguises of suspected double agents to monitor their activities. Their foreign intelligence operations were extensive, reaching into the courts of enemies, allies, and neutral states, utilizing a wide range of disguises.
Like,
Dwarfs, eunuchs, entertainers, merchants, ascetics, farmers, monks, herdsmen, tribal people, you name it, anyone who could plausibly be there.
it's an incredible reach. And they weren't just focused on external intelligence. They also had robust counter-espionage measures in place to safeguard their own kingdom, protecting themselves from the same tactics.
Exactly, they would strategically plant loyal agents who would feign disloyalty to lure out foreign spies. High-ranking officials might even be instructed to act suspiciously to attract the attention of enemy operatives.
A sort of honeypot.
In a way, the chancellor even maintained his own independent spy network, utilizing individuals like minstrels and even brothel keepers to monitor revenue officials and local leaders.
So multiple layers of spying, even internally.
Right. Their internal duties range from testing the loyalty of their own officials to suppressing any signs of treachery and even conducting psychological operations on their own population to maintain control.
It's a fascinating glimpse into the intricate and often ruthless world of ancient intelligence gathering. Now, if that wasn't enough, these texts also delve into some rather dark and intriguing areas, including what sounds like chemical warfare, the use of poisons, and even practices that seem almost magical in nature.
This aspect is particularly striking, revealing a mindset where virtually any tool, regardless of modern ethical considerations, could be employed if it offered a strategic advantage.
So they weren't just relying on spies and conventional weapons. They had concoctions designed to kill or disable enemies, even induce blindness or madness. That's intense.
Yari. There are even mentions of contaminating water supplies. And the use of poison wasn't limited to large-scale tactics. Agents disguised as foreigners could subtly administer poisons in the enemy king's food or clothing.
Yikes.
Interestingly, the text also emphasized the importance of possessing antidotes to protect their own forces.
Right, makes sense. Protect your own side. Then we enter this realm of what are described as magical and illusory practices. It sounds almost fantastical descriptions of fire breathing, walking on fire, and fake meteors. What was that about?
Well, these were likely a combination of rudimentary chemical tricks and carefully staged illusions designed to create fear, confusion, and demoralization among the enemy ranks.
So psychological warfare again, but with a magic flavor.
Exactly. The texts also mention what seemed to be chemical or occult practices for achieving things like invisibility, night vision, and even breaking chains. The underlying goal was always to create a psychological edge.
And it wasn't just about creating illusions. They also described magical attacks, curses intended to destroy livelihoods, cause diseases, and even conjure what they believed to be magical animals or spirits to harm their adversaries.
Yeah, the distinction between early scientific understanding, or what passed for it and what was perceived as magic at the time, is likely blurred for us now. However, the intent was clear: to weaken and incapacitate the enemy through both tangible and intangible means.
So anything that worked. essentially.
Pretty much. They even discuss using deceptive occult practices to instill fear, not just in military campaigns, but also to suppress internal revolts.
It's a potent combination of psychological manipulation and what they believe to be supernatural power. And disguise played a crucial role here as well, didn't it? Agents would disguise themselves in various ways to get close to the enemy and carry out these acts.
Absolutely. Agents disguised as hunchbacks, dwarfs, or even as individuals who were blind, deaf, or mute could infiltrate enemy territories and carry out acts of sabotage or poisoning without arousing suspicion.
Taking advantage of people's assumptions. It's interesting to note that they even seem to justify the use of these occult practices against those they considered non-dharmic, those outside their own societal or religious framework.
Right. It suggests a very specific ethical justification within their worldview. If you're protecting Dharma, then perhaps these methods are seen as acceptable against those perceived as threats to it.
And there's a clear double standard at play. While the king and his agents are seemingly encouraged to utilize these methods, common people found practicing black magic faced exile.
Yeah, that highlights the idea that these powers were tools of the state, not to be wielded by the general populace. Control again.
It really opens a window into a world where the lines between strategy, deception, and even the supernatural appear to have been quite fluid. Now, turning our attention back to internal threats, these ancient texts also offer insights into how to subvert political leaders within an enemy state and even within one's own.
Yes, it's about understanding the internal dynamics of power and exploiting any existing weaknesses or rivalries. One tactic involved instigating revolt among a prince's allies by fostering feelings of being overlooked or betrayed, making them feel sidelined.
So it's about creating discontent and a sense of injustice among those who are close to the potential successor. What about methods for subverting high-ranking officials? Similar stuff.
Pretty similar, yeah. The approaches here mirrored those used against external adversaries. Planting rumors to sow discord, forging evidence to discredit them, and using disguised agents to turn them against their own ruler. It's a classic strategy of divide and conquer.
And they even had specific strategies for dealing with powerful figures like viceroys and chancellors who wielded significant independent authority, people who could be real threats.
The aim was often to isolate and undermine their authority, spreading rumors of their impending disgrace, creating chaos, and then blaming them for it.
Setting them up.
Or even resorting to assassinations and then framing the target were all tactics employed. The ultimate goal was to create a power vacuum that could be exploited.
And for those who controlled the military, the army chiefs and defense corps, they had their own vulnerabilities that could be exploited, I assume.
Oh yeah, creating distrust was a key element. Agents would attempt to sow suspicion among the military leaders, perhaps by offering bribes or even using poison. The objective was to undermine their loyalty to the ruling power.
It sounds like psychological manipulation was a constant and potent weapon in their arsenal. They would even use something like romantic intrigue to stir up trouble among military commanders.
Absolutely. Using women to instigate infidelity and rivalry among army commanders could lead to significant internal instability. And as we've seen before, spreading false rumors, such as telling officials they were targeted for elimination, could create paranoia and lead to defections.
Just pure chaos generation sometimes.
And if more subtle methods failed, they weren't afraid to simply create widespread chaos to distract and weaken their opponents.
Like how?
Unleashing animals, starting fires, poisoning supplies, staging fake attacks, any means to disrupt the enemy's operations and sow confusion before a potential military engagement.
And assassination was always on the table.
Oh, yes. And of course, assassination was always a considered option, using everything from poison to disguised agents at seemingly secure events like religious ceremonies. They even mentioned the use of mechanical traps, and even animals like crocodiles as weapons.
Crocodiles.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Apparently so. It's a truly comprehensive, if rather brutal, playbook for undermining any potential opposition, both within and outside their borders. Now, finally, let's touch on their strategies for lowering enemy morale, and even for infiltrating what appeared to be impenetrable fortresses.
Yeah, sieges must have been tough. How did they tackle that?
The siege of a fortified city was a major challenge in ancient warfare. These texts outline some fascinating psychological tactics aimed at weakening the enemy's resolve from within the walls. One method involved using what were described as supernatural tricks
Or magic.
to make the enemy believe in omens or divine intervention working against them. So, orchestrating events like fire seemingly appearing in water or having agents hidden within temples who could speak as deities to instill fear and uncertainty.
Make them think the gods were against them.
Precisely. The objective was to make the enemy feel like the cosmos itself was aligned against them. They also developed strategies to trick the enemy into abandoning the perceived safety of their fortifications,
How? Lure them out.
such as using disguised holy men who would promise rewards or hidden treasures outside the walls, or even staging fake demonic apparitions to scare them into fleeing.
Playing on greed and fear again.
Exactly. Or exploiting personal weaknesses. If the enemy king was known for his love of hunting or elephants or women, they would create scenarios designed to lure him into an ambush.
And if those psychological tactics didn't succeed, they would resort to more direct methods, like ambushing the enemy when they were most vulnerable.
Right. During festivals or religious ceremonies, or when individuals were alone or unguarded, exploiting moments of vulnerability was key.
Makes sense.
And if they couldn't entice the enemy to leave the fortress, the next step was to try to get their own agents inside.
Infiltrating the seemingly secure fortress itself. How did they accomplish that? That seems incredibly difficult.
By disguising agents as ordinary people, traders, artisans, monks who could plausibly enter the fortress, these agents would then smuggle in weapons and wait for the opportune moment
For what?
to open the gates from within or create a diversion to allow their forces to enter. They would even exploit existing dissent among other rulers or feign peace negotiations as a cover for infiltration.
It really paints a picture of warfare that relied as much on cunning and deception as it did on sheer military strength. Maybe even more so sometimes.
Absolutely. These ancient texts provide a profound insight into the understanding of human psychology and the willingness to employ, well, pretty much any means necessary to achieve strategic objectives in the pursuit and maintenance of power.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, we've really uncovered a remarkable spectrum of strategies within these ancient texts, haven't we? From elaborate deceptions and sophisticated intelligence networks to the calculated use of psychological manipulation and a rather pragmatic, even ruthless approach to maintaining control both internally and externally.
Yeah, it's quite striking how advanced and at times unsettling these ancient methods were.
It really is.
What's particularly thought-provoking, I think, is how these fundamental principles of human behavior and strategic maneuvering appear to transcend historical periods. While the tools and technologies of governance and conflict have evolved dramatically, the underlying motivations and the core ways in which power is sought, maintained, and challenged often echo these ancient approaches.
It truly makes you reflect, doesn't it? Considering these detailed methods from centuries ago, you can't help but wonder about the extent to which these fundamental principles still shape the dynamics of power in our world today, even if they manifest through different means and technologies.
Indeed, the richness and depth of these ancient texts offer far more than we've had time to explore in this discussion. We've really only scratched the surface of these ingenious and sometimes quite disturbing methods of statecraft and security.
So, what does all of this mean for you, our learner? This deep dive into Part 9 reveals a, well, incredibly sophisticated and often ruthless system of intelligence gathering and covert action in the ancient world.
It really is remarkable. From the meticulous recruitment and training of spies with unbelievably diverse covers,
To the intricate plots against internal threats and foreign adversaries, the Arthashastra provides a fascinating, if sometimes unsettling, glimpse into ancient statecraft.
the emphasis on understanding human weaknesses, the strategic use of deception, the sheer breadth of tactics employed, it certainly offers food for thought even today.
Absolutely. While the ethical considerations are stark, from our modern viewpoint, the underlying principles of intelligence, counterintelligence, strategic influence, these remain relevant areas of study.
No question. The methods change, the technology changes. But the fundamental goals of understanding and influencing others in the political sphere persist.
We hope this exploration has sparked some aha moments for you, and maybe a desire to delve even deeper into the complexities of the Arthashastra. What aspects of these ancient strategies do you find most surprising, or perhaps most thought-provoking?
It certainly makes you think about the hidden currents beneath the surface of power, both then and now.
Yeah, there's so much there. So we encourage you, our listener, to think about which specific areas of these ancient strategies resonated most with you. What parallels do you see in the world around us today? We invite you to delve further into these historical accounts and consider the enduring nature of these fundamental dynamics of power.
Join us next time as we continue to unpack the intricacies and, frankly, the often surprising wisdom of this ancient text. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.